Let me tell you about a story that honestly feels like it was ripped straight out of an anime. We're talking about the Battle of Tsushima, one of the most unbelievable, most decisive, and just wildest naval upsets in the history of the world.
So, what we're about to get into is the story of what happens when just epic, almost comical incompetence meets flawless, disciplined execution. This is the tale of arguably the most disastrous voyage a Navy has ever undertaken, and it all leads to a battle for the ages.
At its heart, this really is a classic underdog story. On one side, you have this bumbling giant, a legacy power with a big, scary reputation. And on the other, you've got the ambitious challenger, a nation just champing at the bit to prove itself on the world stage.
So let's break down the matchup. In one corner, you've got the Russian Baltic Fleet. They're representing this huge European empire with a fearsome, if maybe a little outdated reputation. And squaring off against them, the Imperial Japanese Navy. Now, just a few decades earlier, Japan had been a feudal society, right? But after the Meiji Restoration, they modernized their military at an absolutely breathtaking pace. They created this incredibly disciplined and highly motivated force armed with all the latest tech. It was a true David versus Goliath scenario.
Okay, now get this. Before a single shot was even fired in the main event, the Russian fleet spent 8 months just getting to the fight. I mean, think about that for a second. An 18,000 nautical mile voyage that was, frankly, just a preview of the absolute chaos to come.
And what a voyage it was. Oh my gosh, the fleet was crewed by a ton of untrained peasants, many of whom had never even seen the ocean before. They were so paranoid about Japanese surprise attacks that they famously sailed into the North Sea, mistook a fleet of British fishing boats for enemy torpedo boats, and just opened fire. They almost started a war with Britain by accident. They even managed to shoot their own ships on multiple occasions. You literally can't make this stuff up. The whole thing was just a disaster waiting to happen.
So, after 8 long months of that whole mess, the exhausted, beleaguered Russian fleet finally steams into the Tsushima Strait and sails right into a Japanese ambush. This was it, the decisive moment.
As the Russian ships slowly came into view, the brilliant Japanese commander Admiral Togo sent this now legendary signal to his fleet. You can just feel the weight of those words, right? The stakes could not possibly have been higher. It was all or nothing for Japan.
So, what Togo did next is the crucial part. He decided to execute a classic, but incredibly risky, naval maneuver known as crossing the T. The idea is to sail your line of ships directly across the path of the enemy's column. If you do it right, you can bring every single one of your powerful side guns, your broadside, to bear on their lead ships. Meanwhile, they can only shoot back with the few guns they have pointing forward. It's absolutely devastating if you can pull it off.
And Togo, man, he pulled it off perfectly. He saw the Russian column approaching, and then, in this move of just incredible audacity, he turned his entire fleet in succession directly across their path. This completely trapped the Russian lead ships, subjecting them to a hellstorm of concentrated fire from the entire Japanese line. He literally turned a textbook theory into a devastating, brutal reality.
And the result of this flawless maneuver? Well, it was one of the most one-sided victories in all of military history. The aftermath was just stunning, and it sent shockwaves around the entire globe.
I mean, just look at these losses. It's insane. Of the 38 Russian ships that went into that strait, 21 were sunk, and another 7 were captured. And the Japanese? They lost just 3 small torpedo boats. This wasn't a battle. It was a complete and total annihilation.
So, to put it as bluntly as possible, after an 8-month trip around the entire world, the pride of the Russian Empire, the entire Baltic fleet, was utterly obliterated in a matter of hours.
And the impact of this single battle was just monumental. In one afternoon, Japan instantly established itself as a major world power. The long-held myth of European military invincibility was completely shattered. And crucially, this was the very first time in the modern era that an Asian power had decisively defeated a European one. The world was never going to be the same.
Which really just leaves us with this one question. A question that the Battle of Tsushima answers perfectly. What happens when perfectly executed, disciplined strategy goes toe-to-toe with disorganized brute force? Well, now you know.